Hello, growers. I'm Dr. MJ Coco from cocoforcannabis.com. I've got a big one. I'm testing the new Mars Hydro Smart FC1000w. It's the newest addition to the FC series, which has been one of the most popular grow light lines since it launched a few years ago. The FC1000w has new improvements in the design and assembly. It also has the built-in Mars Hydro Smart Grow system. You can connect it to your phone via Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and control it with the Mars Hydro app. The FC1000w is the biggest light I've ever tested. And I don't mean the most powerful. I mean, it's physically huge, up to 6 feet long with the rail extensions. I had to extend my testing area and build new reflective walls in order to test it. If you don't have that much grow space, don't worry. It can be assembled to be only 4 feet long, and it can fit in 4x4 or 5x5 tents. I'll test it in both configurations, with short 4-foot rails in 5x5 and 4x4 spaces, and with long 6-foot rails in a 4x6-foot space. I was surprised by some things and really impressed with some things. The FC1000w is a great light. I'll give you the data that you'll need to determine if it's the right light for your grow. Of course, during the premiere on YouTube, I'll give the one that I tested away. If you're watching during the live premiere, guess a 3-digit number in the chat. If you missed the premiere, be sure to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss the next one. The Mars Hydro Smart FC1000 is a huge light, but it arrives disassembled in this reasonably sized box. Below the padding, we have the Mars Hydro stickers, the FC series manual, and then the first 5 LED bars. Let's take a look. There are 3 rows of Samsung LM301B diodes, interspersed with Osram 660nm diodes. Mars Hydro offers the Smart FC1000w with 2 diode options. You can get it with the Samsung LM301B diodes, which is what I'm testing, or you can upgrade to the Samsung LM301H Evo diodes. Considering the price difference, I'd stick with the LM301Bs. There are 2 full levels of LED bars, a total of 10. Then we get down to the frame and the driver. The cords are already connected to the driver. It's a large Mars Hydro branded driver manufactured by LG LED Solutions. Since switching to these drivers last year, the performance of the Mars Hydro fixtures has improved. We got an accessories bag. They must have improved the assembly process because there's no more bag of bolts. Finally, we have the frame rails where we'll mount the LED bars. You can see the different alignment markings to help set the positions for the bars. And these rail extensions, they'll make the 4-foot rails into 6-foot rails. Let me lay everything out and we'll take another look. First, here's the driver. It has an integrated dimming box, and the cables come attached to the driver. These ends of the cables will attach to the individual LED bars. There's the accessories bag, and a rail and rail extensions. 10 LED bars is a lot. They will all clip on to the rails, with or without the rail extensions. As we saw, the LED bars have 3 rows of diodes, and the diodes are concentrated somewhat towards both ends. Let me get it all put together. The bars have these new clips on each end, and they just easily snap into the rails. It really is that simple. Let's look closer. The plastic clip slides easily into the channel in the rail. You can pull back this tab to make sure it's secure, or push it forward to release the clip and remove or adjust the bar. To start, I'll use the standard length rails. All 10 bars fit along the standard 4-foot rail. Pretty tight together in this setup. And then we can add the rubber corner protectors that come in the accessories bag. If you're growing in a large space and want to use the FC1000w in 4x6 form, you would start by attaching the rail extensions to each rail. There's a little bracket that's already attached to the extension piece. You slide that into the main section of rail, and then you add the little hex screw with a little wrench that they provide. With the rails extended, you would then add the LED bars. There is a separate set of markings to help you space the bars along the 6-foot rails. I'll test it in this configuration later. First, I'm going to test it in the more compact configuration. There are holes cut in the rails to attach hangers. They include a wire hanging rig and 2 ratchet pulleys. I prefer to use 4 ratchet pulleys for my tests. I'll lift the Mars Hydro Smart FC1000w up into position. Before I can turn it on, I'll have to plug in all of the bars. There are two cables out of the driver. Each branches off to 5 connectors, and you attach each to the LED bars with a simple push and twist. Now it's ready. I'll turn it on. That is a lot of light. We have 10 LED bars with 371 diodes each. That's a total of 3,710 diodes. At a maximum power draw of 1,000 watts, that's 3.7 diodes per watt, or only 0.27 watts per diode. That's the power level that will allow the diodes to be most efficient. It's a great diode count, and they're great diodes. They include Samsung LM301B diodes with 2 color temperatures. The 3000K diodes look warmer, and the 5000K diodes look cooler. You can also see the 660 nanometer red OSRAM diodes. Again, you can opt for the model with the more expensive LM301H EVO diodes, but I'm pretty impressed with this setup as it is. While we wait for the diodes to warm up and stabilize, let's check out the published stats. There is a surprise. This is the product page for the Mars Hydro Smart FC1000w. The list price is nearly $900, but it's on sale now for $849. Whether it's on sale or not, use discount code CCFC to save another 3 to 10%. You can select the LM301H EVO diodes, but you can see they're considerably more expensive. If I was paying, I'd get the LM301Bs. I think they'll perform just as well. In Mars Hydro's in-house sphere test, this model generated 2.9 micromoles per watt. The Smart in the Smart FC1000w is about the app control. It has Bluetooth and Wi-Fi connections, and you can control the light and set the dimmer on the Mars Hydro app on your phone. What I found strange is that the FC1000w is not always 1000 watts. Here you can see that they list the wattage at 1000 watts plus or minus 5% at 240 volts. And then they say it's only 900 watts plus or minus 5% at 120 volts. It comes with a 120 volt plug and no plug adapter. Most home growers will end up running it on 120 volt power, and I'm going to test it at 120 volt power, so expect it to be about a 900 watt light. Before I run the tests, let's run these numbers through the Coco for Cannabis Grow Light Calculator. This is our tool to help growers analyze and compare grow lights. It focuses on the key stats and helps you make better decisions. In the calculator on the right, I load all the fixtures that I test. In the calculator on the left, you can enter data from manufacturers, and the calculator will predict how the fixture will perform. The FC1000w is only going to draw 900 watts with 120 volt power. If you use discount code CCFC on marshydro.com, costs will be about $824. And the PPF data that they report is from an in-house sphere test. That is total PPF. They claim 2.9 micromoles per watt. Since Mars Hydro started reporting their in-house sphere data, the calculator has been very accurate predicting their performance. And this is incredible. 2.51 micromoles per watt is absolutely superior efficiency. With 900 watts of power, the calculator says it can cover almost 35 square feet, and you could harvest over 60 ounces. That's almost 1,700 grams for only 900 watts. And 36 cents per micromole is excellent. Sure, there are some slightly cheaper lights, but they don't get 2.51 micromoles per watt. I need to run some tests and see how legit these numbers are. To start, I set up the Mars Hydro FC1000w in the 5x5 foot test area. Most lights this size and shape are meant for 5x5 coverage. However, it's worth noting that Mars Hydro does not specifically recommend this coverage. They recommend 4x4 or 4x6. I'll run those tests next. Even in a 5x5 area, it's a ton of light. I could not get the PPFD down to 1000 micromoles per square meter without dimming. So I have it here at 41 centimeters or 16 inches, and the maximum PPFD is 1400 micromoles per square meter. I ran the PAR test with the Apogee SQ500 sensor, then I ran an ePAR test with the Apogee SQ610 sensor. ePAR, or extended PAR, includes all of the PAR light plus far red light. Recent research has demonstrated that far red light is photosynthetically active, so ePAR is a better measurement of the potential of a grow light. I still measure PAR for comparability to other tests and limits. but ePAR is what really counts. Let's check out these maps. First, we have the PAR map. PAR is light from 400 to 700 nanometers, and the values in each square reflect the density of that light, the PPFD. For growers that use ventilation to control climate and therefore operate at ambient levels of carbon dioxide, we recommend a maximum PPFD of 1,000 micromoles per square meter. You can see the values in this map are well above that. I measured an even 1,400 right in the center. I only recommend this level of light to growers in sealed rooms with carbon dioxide levels between 1,200 and 1,500 ppm. The corner densities in this test are still all above the 500 micromole per square meter threshold for efficient photosynthesis, but they are somewhat lower than most growers running supplemental carbon dioxide would prefer. When I switch to the ePAR map, all of the values go up. That's because ePAR is a broader range of light. It counts all the photons from 400 to 750 nanometers. The corners are still a little low, but there is a ton of light in this map. I expect that the distribution might be better when I test it in the recommended coverage areas. But first, let's run the numbers on the 5x5 PAR and ePAR tests. The hanging height for these tests was 41 centimeters, or 16 inches. In the PAR range, the maximum density was 1,400 micromoles per square meter, and the average density was 966.8 micromoles per square meter. In a 5x5 test, that's good for a usable ppf of 2,175.4 micromoles. In the ePAR range, the maximum density was 1,466 micromoles per square meter, and the average density was 1,018.5 micromoles per square meter. That's good for a usable ppf of 2,291.6 micromoles. In both tests, I measured a power draw of 870 watts, which makes the photon efficacies exceptional: 2.5 micromoles per watt in the PAR range and 2.63 micromoles per watt in the ePAR range. The calculator predicted this efficacy, and it's among the highest that I've ever measured. I wanted to run a 5x5 test for growers without supplemental carbon dioxide. So I raised the Mars Hydro Smart FC-1000w up to 56 centimeters, 22 inches, and I had to dim the light down to about 78% to get the maximum PPFD in the PAR range down to our recommended limit of 1,000 micromoles per square meter. I set up the test using the SQ500 PAR sensor, but then I ran just the ePAR test with the SQ610 ePAR sensor. Let's check out the map. This is an excellent distribution of light for most growers in a 5x5 space. The densities are excellent from the center to the edges. The entire map is in the prime photosynthetic range, and the vast majority of the map has densities above 700 micromoles per square meter, which we define as the maximum production zone. The density values in the center of the map are about 400 points lower than they were in the first ePAR test, because the FC1000w is further from the canopy and dimmer. What's interesting is that the densities in the corners and around the edges are basically unchanged from that first ePAR test. Let's look back at that map. Here at 41 centimeters and 100% power, we had values over 1460 in the middle, and the lowest corner was 556. In the new test, I raised and dimmed the FC1000w. So the values in the center are now about 1,050, down from 1,460 micromoles per square meter. But the lowest corner is 560 micromoles per square meter, which is actually 4 points higher than the first test. In the center, raising and dimming both lowered the density of light. However, around the perimeter, raising the FC1000w up 15 centimeters actually improved the density of light. A higher hanging height allows more photons to reach the edges. In this case, that improvement was almost exactly canceled out by lowering the power to about 78%. So I was able to get the center values down to our limit for grows without supplemental carbon dioxide without lowering the density of light around the perimeter. As a result, the distribution of light is much better in this test. Let's run the numbers. The hanging height for this test was 56 centimeters, about 22 inches. It dimmed the FC1000w to about 78%, so that the maximum density of light in the PAR range was exactly 1000 micromoles per square meter. But this is an ePAR test. The maximum density in the ePAR range is 1048 micromoles per square meter, and the average density is 804.9 micromoles per square meter. That's good for a usable ePPF of 1811.1 micromoles. At about 78% on the dimmer knob, the power draw was 698 watts, which gives the Mars Hydro Smart FC-1000w a usable photon efficacy of 2.59 micromoles per watt in this test. There is obviously plenty of light for growers in a 5x5 space. However, Mars Hydro recommends the FC1000w for 4x4 or 4x6 flowering coverage. The 4x4 space is significantly smaller. It will only make sense to get the FC1000w for this space if you're trying to deliver ultra-high PPFD for plants with supplemental carbon dioxide. With 1200 to 1500 ppm of carbon dioxide, plants can process up to 1500 micromoles per square meter. I adjusted the height until the maximum PPFD was exactly 1500 micromoles per square meter. It is 49.5 centimeters or 19.5 inches above the sensor. I ran a full PAR test, and then I ran a full ePAR test. These are going to be bright maps. Let's check them out. First, we have the PAR map with PPFD values from 1223 to 1500. Yes, the lowest corner is 1223 micromoles per square meter. In the ePAR map, the values are about 100 points higher all across the map. The uniformity of distribution is incredible. Unlike the first set of tests where the corners dropped off, now that the fixture is in a smaller space and a higher height, there's almost no drop-off. This is really a lot of light to squeeze into a 4x4 space. You better be running a high concentration of carbon dioxide if you run the FC1000 like this. Let's run the numbers. The hanging height for these tests was 49.5 centimeters, about 19.5 inches. In the PAR range, the maximum PPFD was exactly 1500 micromoles per square meter, and the average PPFD was an incredible 1384.5 micromoles per square meter. In a 4x4 test, that equates to a usable ppf of 1993.7 micromoles. In the ePAR range, the maximum density was 1601 micromoles per square meter, and the average density was 1471.8 micromoles per square meter, which is good for a usable ePPF of 2119.3 micromoles. In both tests, the power draw was 870 watts, so that's a usable PAR photon efficacy of 2.29 and a usable ePAR photon efficacy of 2.44 micromoles per watt. These are incredible numbers and a nearly perfect distribution of light. It's made possible because both the fixture and the light are about 4x4 feet square. The fit to coverage area is really tight. With the rail extensions, it's going to be just as tight in the 4x6 area. Indeed, there's less than 2 inches clearance on all 4 sides, but the PPFD is lower than the 4x4 test because there's more space and the bars are more spread out. PPFD in the PAR range is just above 1000 micromoles per square meter, so I raised the FC1000w. There's just no place for the light to go, so the PPFD was dropping very slowly. Rather than raise the light up to an unrealistic height, I decided to just set the test at 41 centimeters or 16 inches. PPFD is a little over 1000, but it's a comfortable hanging height. I ran a full PAR test and a full ePAR test. These densities are going to be more familiar, and the distribution seems to be excellent. Let's check out the maps. First up, we have the PAR map with a 400 to 700 nanometer light. You can see the maximum density of 1062 near the center. It may be a little strong for some grows, so you may want to dial it back to 90 or 95%. But it's a great distribution. The lowest density in the corner is still high at 824 micromoles per square meter. In the ePAR map, the values all jump up and the distribution remains excellent. I think the extendable rails are neat, and it's perfect for a 4x6 space. but I don't think 4x6 spaces are very common. However, I imagine growers may set it up like this in a larger room. Let's run the numbers. The hanging height in these tests was 41 centimeters, or 16 inches above the sensors. In the PAR test, the maximum PPFD was 1,062 micromoles per square meter, and the average PPFD was an impressive 967.4 micromoles per square meter. In a 4x6 area, that equates to a usable ppf of 2,089.6 micromoles. In the ePAR test, the maximum density was 1,116 micromoles per square meter, and the average density was 1,016.9 micromoles per square meter. That's a usable ePPF of 2,196.4 micromoles. The power draw for both tests was 870 watts, which means the Mars Hydro Smart FC-1000w delivered 2.4 micromoles per watt in the PAR range and 2.52 micromoles per watt in the ePAR range. If I was growing with this light in a 4x6 space without carbon dioxide, I'd set it up like this. I suppose with elevated levels of CO2, you could run it closer. I lowered the FC1000w down to 30.5 centimeters, only 12 inches above the sensors. This test will be interesting to see how hanging height affects distribution in this space. Since there's such a tight fit to coverage area, I think we can run it this low without compromising the corners too much. The fact is that when the light fits the space, the hanging height is much less relevant. I suspect we'll see that in the map. I only ran the ePAR test at this height. The density values range from about 1,160 near the middle to 849 micromoles per square meter in the top left corner. If you think this looks pretty similar to the ePAR test at 16 inches, you're right. The values shifted by only a few points. Let's flip to that map. Here at 16 inches above the sensors, the maximum density is 1,116 micromoles per square meter, and the lowest corner is 864 micromoles per square meter. So lowering the FC1000w by 4 inches did not do much to the distribution or the densities in each square. But at the lower height, more light does reach the canopy. Let's run the numbers. The hanging height for this test was only 30.5 centimeters, 12 inches above the sensor. The maximum ePPFD was 1,161, and the average ePPFD was 1,049.3 micromoles per square meter. That equates to a usable ePPF of 2,266.4 micromoles. With a power draw of 870 watts, the Mars Hydro Smart FC1000w hit a usable photon efficacy of 2.61 micromoles per watt. I'm just blown away by that efficacy. This is the most efficient production model grow light that I've tested, and I have even more data to share about it. You can find all of the data and maps on the test report page in the Coco for Cannabis Grow Light Guide. Here are the main data from the 4x6 ePAR test at 16 inches. Just incredible numbers. We rate it for almost 34 square feet and predict you can harvest over 3.5 pounds. Here you can find the shopping link and our discount code. For the best deals, shop marshydro.com and use discount code CCFC. But be sure to check our deals and discounts page. If there's a special sale, we'll tell you about it there. Currently, your cost will be about $824. That's a lot of money for a light, but you're getting a lot of light. Micromole per micromole, it's only 38 cents, which is an excellent price for a high-performance fixture with top-end components. One lucky grower will get the one that I tested for free. The FC1000w surprised me in a few ways, but the efficacy made my jaw drop. So the winning number is the photon efficacy from the 5x5 ePAR test, 263. The only time I got a number higher than that, I was testing a prototype. Congrats to whoever guessed the closest number during the live premiere. If you missed the premiere, be sure to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss the next one. Below the test data and the grow space calculator, you'll find my written review. I'm impressed with the new Mars Hydro Smart FC1000w. The performance is excellent, with even distribution and incredible photon efficacy. The fit to coverage area in the 4x4 space is incredible for growers running supplemental carbon dioxide. If you're growing in a 4x6 space, it may be the best light out there. Regardless of the space, there are very few lights that can touch the photon efficacy of the FC1000w. You get more light per watt than any comparable option. It puts out so much light, I expect many growers will have to use the dimmer. There are two ways to dim the Smart FC1000w. There's a built-in dimmer knob, but you can also connect it to your phone with Bluetooth or Wi-Fi and control the dimmer through the Mars Hydro app. The app is easy to set up and connect to the fixture. You can control the dimmer precisely, set timers, and make remote adjustments. The app can also control other smart grow tech from Mars Hydro. I tested the dimmer with the FC1000w set in the 5x5 space at 41 centimeters. You can see that the dimmer ran a bit strong throughout the range. However, as with most grow lights, there is a consistent relationship between the power draw and the PPFD. Using a simple power meter to measure the wattage is a reliable way to gauge dimmer power. The PPFD percentage is always just slightly higher than the dimmer percentage because the diodes are more efficient as the power goes down. So if the power draw is about half of normal, expect the PPFD will be about 53%. I also measured the surface temperatures, but I want to make it clear that surface temperatures do not inform us about how much heat a fixture will add to a grow space. For all lights, the amount of heat that they add depends on the power draw. With 870 watts of power in my tests, the FC1000w will add about 2,967 BTU per hour to a grow space. Surface temperatures are important because cooler fixtures run more efficiently. The LED bars ran relatively cool at only 47.6 degrees Celsius, 117.7 degrees Fahrenheit. The Mars Hydro branded driver reached a surface temperature of 69.2 degrees Celsius, 156.6 degrees Fahrenheit. If you have the right space for it, the Mars Hydro FC1000w is certainly worth your consideration. It has the best efficacy out there, top shelf components, and I love the constant improvements that Mars Hydro makes to their designs. The new clips to attach the bars to the rails and the rail extensions are great improvements. With discount code CCFC, it costs about 40 cents per micromole, and if there are better deals, we'll put them on our deals and discounts page. You can now find slightly less expensive lights, but not any that match the power and performance of the new Mars Hydro Smart FC1000w. At Coco for Cannabis, we always put the grower's interest first. Our goal is to provide impartial, science-based testing and reviews for growers. You support our work when you use our discount codes to purchase grow lights. If you have questions or want to chat with me, I do the Ask Dr. Coco show every Monday night for my Patreon subscribers. Check me out on Patreon, Dr. MJ Coco. I'd like to thank Sean at Mars Hydro for sending me the Smart FC1000w to test. And thank you for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Turn on your notifications so you don't miss the next PAR Test Premier giveaway. And if you want to win a light, we're always doing grow light giveaways on the deals and discounts page at cocoforcannabis.com. Check it out. And while you're there, you can read our articles, chat with the community in the chat room, join our next grow challenge, or try your hand at the grow light calculator. Grow your own, but don't grow alone. Let's grow together. I'm Dr. MJ Coco, sending all of you grower love.